Welcome to Freaked Out with your co-hosts Liz and Landon.
What's up, everybody?
Well, I already discussed the details of this case in part 1, so if you haven't heard it yet, make sure to watch it first as we discuss details of her aunt's disappearance first. Today's episode is about Summer Wells, and I wanted to explain a little bit more that I explained last time, that with this type of reading, I can't really speak to Summer because she has not passed on, knock on wood. I can pick up on things with what she's dealt with in the past year and maybe even her outcome, but now is the key to all of this. So Rosemary, since she was related to her and since she was around at the beginning of this crazy situation, she wants Summer to make it back home.
Let's get started. What has been going on in the background of this family before the disappearance of Summer Wells?
I have so many messages floating around at the same time, and I'm going to try to answer as many questions and details as I possibly can. Once I post this video, and if people still have questions, I will be doing a live Q&A, and you can do this all on Podbean, so just make sure you are following me there, and you will automatically get that notification. A very cool and close friend of mine had mentioned to me about Dawn Wells' son, whom I believe is currently incarcerated for being a convicted sex offender, pleading guilty in Arkansas in 2007 for a sexual indecency with a child. She showed me a photo of this guy, and I honestly believe he was the main person involved in the disappearance of Rosemary Bly. She also shudders when I try to confirm, so in my gut, I'm kind of feeling that's him. I had mentioned that Dawn Wells had a past, present, and future about doing drugs and offering things that didn't really belong to him as wagers for the drugs. I see that he offered his wife up a few times, offering her to give them like sexual favors, depending on the amount of money due. I feel like it all happened a few times, but I feel like it was when she was much younger. I also see that something had been offered only a few times. I feel like Candace didn't really want to go for it, but I believe he made her do it. I don't feel like any of the kids were around at this point. It's possible she was pregnant with the first son, which is when I believe this took place. I feel like Candace almost left him at this point, but he begged her for forgiveness, and I see that she had spent years perfecting her look to be more unappealing and unattractive, to make her look much older than she actually was. She did this so he wouldn't be tempted to do this to her. Now, they had more kids, and as life happened, Summer was born. Now, she was in love with having such a beautiful baby. She had never seen such a beautiful child, and I feel like Dawn also grew pretty attached to his daughter, but more in a creepy way. I feel like he molested her, and he started to molest her at the age of 3 and continued on. I feel like he called it his special time with Summer. I feel like Candace felt like there was something going on, because sometimes Summer discussed things with her that didn't make sense for a young child to know. So I feel like she just continued to ignore it. I keep feeling things like she was describing Daddy's penis.
Oh my God, that is disgusting.
Right, exactly. I also feel like she expressed these emotions when she was alone. Like, I feel like Candace was constantly crying and scared. I feel like she was scared, but she continued to be scared even with Dawn behind bars now. I feel like he made some statements to her about keeping her mouth shut while he's in there, and that if she does anything to mess around while he is in there, he will know because he has friends keeping an eye on her.
I am honestly not surprised by this. He seems like he's a fucking sick human being.
Oh, no kidding. I feel like he never let anyone else touch her and wasn't planning on letting anyone else touch her, but something pretty big took place. I feel like Dawn had messed up this time. I feel like he owed someone a pretty significant amount of money, and nothing he'd be able to do ever would be able to pay it off. And I feel like Dawn was informed that they were taking something special from him. I feel like Dawn begged these people not to, and was informed if he opened his mouth or interferes with what they planned to do, that they would personally kill him and his entire family. I feel like he knew this was coming. I feel like the man that was involved with this had heard all about Summer, and I feel like he enjoyed the stories Don would share. Like, I feel like he was part of a group of men that like to molest little girls and boys. And I don't know if they talked about what they are, but it's like they pretended the group didn't exactly exist and it wasn't really about kids, but more so their sexual desires. I feel like they referenced their disgusting behaviors as something that was normal, and everyone in the group shared details about things in relation to children they had interactions with. I feel like there were conversations about children who were more willing than others, which methods worked on kids. I feel like they knew a few men in other places who would trade girls for sexual favors. I feel like he asked him if Summer would be someone he would be willing to give over to obtain some sort of larger status in the group, like a new name that is totally made up, but a way to make Don feel important. I don't believe Don agreed to this. I do feel like he did, however, suggest that he would think about it. Now, with that said, I feel like the guy that I keep seeing named Jerry or Gary, I'm not sure which one exactly, but for the purpose of this podcast, I will call him Jerry. I feel like because Don had said no to him, or I don't know, I feel like Jerry decided to put Don in a predicament that he couldn't say no to. He knew how addicted he was to certain drugs, potentially cocaine. I feel like they decided to get Don high one night on an extra stash they had. And I feel like Don wanted more and more. And I feel like this was a period over 3 days. I feel like Jerry told him he needed to give him the money to pay him back for all the drugs over the last few days. And Don suggested he didn't have any money, or at least he wouldn't for a while. I feel like Jerry made a suggestion that he give him his daughter to remove the debt. And I feel like this was kind of talked to on a trial basis. I feel like he wanted him to just introduce him to his daughter so he could see what it would be like to be with her. I feel like Don was begging him to have anyone else, including his own wife, but I see that he did not take that option. He even offered his own mother-in-law.
He really got himself stuck in a bigger trap. I'm sure that he didn't feel like he had any other choices, though. However, he could have gone to the authorities prior to her disappearing. Like, what happened next?
I see that Don decided to avoid these men for a while, and they ended up catching up with him. I feel like they made a threat to take the child and kill his entire family if he did not give him Summer. I feel like Don started to get scared for his family. I feel like he started to tell his wife bits and pieces of the story, but not really giving her all the details, kind of making him seem like an innocent bystander in all this. I feel like he was trying to prepare her. I feel like he also told her that they may even try and kill the entire family, including Summer and the other kids. Jerry had connections everywhere. I feel like he had connections to the 41 arrests made in human trafficking in 2016. I feel like he had many connections everywhere, and I feel like he reminded Don of those connections. He also told him that he better give Summer to him right away, or he would not only kill his entire family, but make him watch. So they made a plan.
I would rather tell them to kill me than take my family. He's not a real man. A real man would defend his family no matter what. But then again, he can't even protect his own daughter from his own disgusting urges. So I shouldn't be surprised in his selfishness. What happened next?
Don decided this day he was going to go to work like every other day, but also build up an alibi. I feel like he told his wife that he was going to be introducing Summer to this guy at some point. I don't necessarily feel like he told her it would happen this day. I feel like he just told her to have some fun with Summer because he had no idea when this meeting was going to happen. I feel like Don had planned all of this in his head. He would casually be the one to remove Summer from the property before anyone else noticed. Summer and her mom were planting flowers in the garden. That I see. I also feel like Summer did in fact go to the basement to play with her stuff. I feel like Don called his wife to let her know he would be coming home late because he had to work a little later. However, that part was not true. I feel like he pulled up and I feel like he had seen Summer outside, but maybe on the other side of the house, he didn't pull his truck all the way up. I see that Dawn called out to Summer to come to the truck and he had a surprise for her. Obviously, she's going to trust her father, and I feel like she went with him and the two of them drove off. I feel like he wasn't too far from the house, perhaps a 10-minute drive from where he picked her up and took her to Jerry. I feel like Jerry also didn't tell Dawn what he had planned to do with her or keeping her or for how long. I feel like Dawn was under the impression that it was only a meeting where he would possibly molest her and then basically give her back. Well, Jerry informed him that he was so impressed by Summer's appearance that he couldn't possibly keep her for just himself and that he can make a lot of money. I do feel like Dawn sort of fought him about it, but was also running out of time. I feel like he only had been gone for about 20 minutes when Candace noticed she was gone. And I feel like at this point, he knew he had to leave in order to keep himself out of what happened. So he told Jerry and Summer that he would be back to pick her up later and that Daddy had to go back to work. I feel like this was the last time he had seen his daughter. I feel like he felt like his daughter may end up being too much for him to deal with. So he felt good knowing that he would be able to come back and get her. At least that's the lie he told himself.
So, wow, this man just left his kid with a known sex trafficking ringleader and felt like she would be okay with him?
Right?
I have no idea how someone could ever be okay with something like that. Anyways, what happened when Dawn got back to the house?
I will give you the details as they come to me. Maybe all over the place, so I'll try to keep the images as focused as I can without trailing off. I feel like he went into a full-blown denial mode, and I feel like he wasn't really able to talk to Candace on his own about his thoughts about what happened. But I feel like it was a long day, and I think that once everyone had left, the two of them were alone again, and I feel like Candace knew in the back of her mind that this may in fact be Jerry, and was patiently waiting for her to be able to be brought back. I feel like she also told her mother, that she felt like Dawn's scary friend had Summer as well. The mother also agreed with her, and I feel like the two of them knew exactly what this man was capable of, not only from experiencing what took place in the past with other girls, but how he treated his own females in his family. They both remained hopeful, though, that she would be brought back, and they would just say she was wandering somewhere on her own. I feel like Candace kept on looking at pictures of her daughter. I feel like she made comments about how she would rather have one of the boys be taken. She was her only girl and the only reason she even had a fourth child. I feel like she was just connected to Summer in a different way than her boys, including the way Dawn abused her. It was all the same way with Candace. He abused her sexually as well, and he lured her when she was younger, and I also feel like he raped her a few times, even when they were married. He would just take what he wanted from her. He also did the same thing to Summer. Summer also said no, but she knew when Daddy was drunk, he would do more. I feel like Candace did make efforts to stop it to a degree, but she was pretty scared to death about it, so she thought that this was the better way somehow. I feel like Candace did try within herself to find the strength to get her kids out, but she didn't have the money or access to the outside world and felt helpless. And with that said, she could have definitely taken many options, she just ignored them. I keep seeing that Dawn and Candace were finally alone. For the first time, she had asked him how they were going to get Summer back. I feel like Dawn was very unsure of when he would see her again. They had to wait until everything died down a bit for her to get back from Jerry. I feel like he didn't hear from him and he brushed it off as if Jerry was doing him a favor, like giving him a break from one of his kids being around, and that she was a lot to deal with at times, so it was a little break. Like, I think this is the kind of stuff he was trying to convince himself of.
Of course, always, right?
I feel like he mentioned this to Candace, and she will be okay as long as we don't talk about Jerry or anything in relation to Jerry. He wanted to make sure he didn't allude to anything in relation to him. And the quicker they did this, the better it will be. He decided to play the victim on social media and befriend many to make it seem like they were willing to participate in every aspect, building up the story. Since Candace had already mentioned that she had vanished, they wanted to continue with that story. I feel like Candace was also heavily medicated to keep her emotions in check. Perhaps Percocets or something along those lines. I feel like they just kept on this way until the media started to blame them in a bigger way.
I don't feel like he really started to show his true colors when the media started to turn on them. I also feel like this is exactly what Jerry wanted them to feel. He wanted these people to be the main suspects in this. And by the time they figured it out that it was connected to him, he would be long gone, at least his ties to Summer Wells.
I agree with you completely. I feel like he did this all to get Summer as far away as he possibly could from Tennessee. And I wouldn't be surprised if he even went on social media and also pointed the full fingers at the parents. This runaround did help him get away with Summer, though. The family was suspect number one, and with major reason. The condition of the home alone was alarming enough to have the kids removed from the home. But that's the reason they told everyone they were concerned. I feel like they spoke to the kids and found out even more. I feel like the kids were able to give a few extra details that Dawn and Candace really left out, including things like what happened to Summer. I feel like the oldest isn't really giving much detail because he's very loyal to his father, but the other younger two boys had been open. I feel as though the boys may have watched or participated in touching Summer as well.
Jesus, I have no words. That is very mortifying. I can't believe these kids had to endure any of these things. Anything else you can pick up on?
Yes, a few things. I feel like Don had a middleman, whom I believe he worked with, or at least sometimes. I feel like this guy was Jerry's friend, and I feel like he would give him little updates on where Summer was, or how she was doing. I feel like he kept on telling them that they couldn't bring her back or be seen, or she may end up getting killed, and they did not want that to happen. To clarify that part, Jerry didn't want to have to come to a point where he felt like it would be too dangerous of a situation, and he may end up killing her to save himself. Don also didn't want that to happen. He did ask to speak to Summer on occasion, and he was denied that as well. They informed him that they possibly could arrest him, or he would be connected to her disappearance if he participated in any sort of conversation with Jerry by phone, or he would kill her instantly. Like, he was like paranoid to the highest degree. So basically telling Don, hey, if you contact me in any way, I'm going to kill your daughter because I don't want anything to happen to me. I feel like Jerry had a nickname for her. I feel like he called her Summer Rae. I don't know why, but it's something he calls her. I also feel like Jerry had since given Summer away. I feel like around the time the Dr. Phil episode took place, this was about around the time that Jerry had informed his informant that he no longer had Summer and that he didn't know where she was. I feel like he insinuated she was killed and that he didn't know where her body was. I also feel like he shared that information with Dawn, and Dawn shared it with Candace. I also feel like she also shared that information with her mother. I feel like they were not informed as to where she went. I personally feel like she was sold to the highest bidder. I feel like the man that currently has her has a few other children, and I don't feel like she's alone, but I also feel like they have changed her appearance a bit as well. I think she has dark black hair. She always looks for her family's faces in crowds. She's used to being in a controlled environment. So when she's told she acts out, she will get abused harder. So she's well aware of how to behave and not be noticed. I feel like she's getting a little older and will be switching hands again with someone else. And the kids she's currently around aren't going to be with her the next time she moves. I feel like Texas is where she currently is, but again, I feel like it's going to be changing again soon. And since it's not set in stone, I don't know where she's heading to yet. When I feel any changes, I will do an update episode all about the updates on cases that I have done already.
I know you had mentioned a few times that something is going to be coming with this case this year. What are you feeling is going to take place or is currently taking place?
Well, the main reason I chose this case to be in this exclusive side of Podbean is because I don't want just anyone to have this information. I keep seeing that the police and the investigators are onto something pretty big surrounding this case, and they don't want to prevent these people involved from getting spooked. I feel like they know a lot more than they're letting on to the media, and know at this moment that they're pretty close to getting answers. They also know how dangerous these people are and are afraid for Summer and other kids connected to this case being killed or shipped off again. What isn't clear is the outcome. I don't feel like Summer's going to die at this point. However, I feel like the sex ring operators have plans to kill kids so they can't tell their stories. I feel like a few other kids that are currently abducted as well are also connected to these men and women who have taken these children. I will spend time letting you know the cases I feel that are related to each other. I sadly see 2 outcomes for this case, and I hope one does not come true. The one vision I see is that the detectives are able to obtain her and save her and get her away from the bad people, and everyone who is involved gets time in their connection to the case, including Dawn and Candace. And she could have saved her daughter with coming forward earlier. I feel like Summer has so much healing ahead of her, and it will happen in a bigger way. I feel like she'll tell her story. The percentage of this story only sitting at a 5% outcome. So I don't feel like it's a very, very plausible outcome for her. The thing that I feel 95% about is they get caught and they kill her in the process. I feel like she won't be the only child that gets killed, but I also feel like there will be a few others that are saved. I also feel like Summer, even with all these horrible things going on in her life, she still looks to the light. She stays as positive as possible. Her name is very fitting. She has this motherly instinct to take care of people, and she does just that. She knows there are other people out there trying to save her. I see her being super smart. One of her friends have told her how much her story has grown in the world. They showed her how her story is on the internet and how people are trying to save her. I also know that the current detectives in this case are working effortlessly on this case and the cases attached to it. It will have some sort of outcome with new details to come forward out in the media by this year, if not sooner. I feel like Dawn will just be about getting right out of jail at the time of when this all comes to light. If the cops can stay on track that they're currently on, I feel like they may even have some undercover cops trying to get into this current sex trafficking ring, and the things you need to be willing to do in order to get the job done is scary and awful, and I can only imagine how hard they are working to get these answers. This team has done a wonderful job thus far.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that information with us today. We truly appreciate it. I know for a fact that you put a lot of effort into this case, and I know that we will wait for any updates that we get. The case was super intense and definitely a lot to think about. I would like to lighten the mood up a bit. Any visions of anything good coming about in the world?
In lieu of the situation taking place in Ukraine and Russia, I feel like a lot of the world is going to do everything that they can to help everyone out here, and will stop at nothing from getting to an extreme situation. And once it's all over, the rest of the world will do everything we can to help everyone out. I feel like we're going to make this situation go away faster than a normal attack would be. And I feel like there will be pretty scary things that will happen between now and June, but I do feel like it'll end up being okay in the long run. I feel like we'll be able to rescue people from bad situations as well. A lot of good people will come forward and be incredible heroes here. I believe these stories will be told, and I feel like these people will get awards when they come back. It will be a beautiful thing for all of the heroes of the world. I also feel like Ontario will enjoy their summer for the first time in 2 years, and that life will get back to the new normal. A lot of hate and anger in the world will die down and get back to normal as well, thank goodness. Now, here's one more update. Since I gathered all this information this week particularly, the police decided to go back and take a look at Summer Wells' place, and now the family is being uncooperative. As I had mentioned earlier in my findings, these details were all indicated after I had started writing all this out. But I can tell you this. They are not going to get anywhere with this family. However, they have one person that I feel like is going to give them information, and it could potentially be Summer Wells' grandmother, Candace. I feel like we're going to find out so much more over the next 3 months, including some details above.
Wow, thank you for that, Liz. Next week, make sure to tune in. Liz and I will be covering the Amber Hagerman case in 2 weeks from now. In the exclusive content section, we will be covering the John Benet Ramsey Part 1, which Liz already has started to work on.
Hooray!
And you don't want to miss this. Please make sure to keep subscribing to be able to have access and look forward to it. Don't forget, stay freaked out. Until next time.
Bye, guys!